Great
Yo,
music.
Robbie,
Hey,
what are you doing, brother?
just waiting on you.
All right, well, I was waiting on you.
Oh, I
And
heard some
me.
grunting.
Yeah, that wasn't me. I think that was someone else in the background there, but that's there might be somebody else joining us. You're in the live hangout live with Drake and Robbie Lochner, and of course, we've got an amazing guest tonight, Mr. Brian Wheat.
Yeah.
His new book, Son of a Milkman. Of course, Brian is of the legendary rock band Tesla. So we're going to have a lot of great stuff to talk about. Let's do a quick shout out to our sponsors here over at, we've got Alexandria at Cunningham at Backbeat Music, her and her husband. We got, honestly, guys, we can't do it without you. Alan and Shannon over at Full Spectrum CBD right here in San Angelo and throughout West Texas. It's time you learn the truth about CBD, baby. And
It's time.
It's time. Jody Gentry over at Media Jaw taking care of all of our website issues that we keep him hopping because we're constantly adding and taking and moving and putting in new videos. So we keep him working. Right?
Yes, sir.
You ready for Brian Wheat, dude?
I am.
Are the
Chomping
people
at the bit. Let's talk to him.
Are the people ready for Brian
Are
Wheat?
they ready? But just so everybody knows, his video camera is on the blink, so he will only be audio, but at least his audio is working. And hey, that's enough. If we could just hear him talk and get stories, and
I'm
a
excited.
lot of good stuff. We want to talk about that book.
Yep. And all the history. Brian, are you with us?
I am. How you guys doing?
Good, brother.
Excellent.
How you doing?
I'm all right. I'm good.
You're living the dream. So today was a magical day. Now, originally, Brian's book, Son of a Milkman, was supposed to come out on December 8th, but it got pushed back to December 15th, man. So look how lucky we are.
Yeah, nice, huh?
Right?
Yeah, they I guess because of the COVID thing or whatever, it got kind of delayed and moved around, and the manufacturing and this, that, and the other. But it came out today, and people are getting it.
Brian, I've got to tell you, man, I got lucky enough to get a pre-copy of the book from our friend Jody Best.
Oh yeah, Cody's great.
Jody's incredible. And Robbie and I have been reading through it. And Brian, I can't, we're going to get into it, but I cannot tell you how many similarities and how proud I am of you for saying the things that you're saying and bringing to light things that I myself suffer with.
A lot of people do. A lot of people. A lot more than you realize. A lot of people.
Absolutely. So congrats on the enormous cojones to just be honest and transparent and to bring this to light, man, because that's rock star in itself, brother.
Well, thank you. I just felt that if I was going to do it and put it out there, that, have some balls and put it out there. And if people give you shit for it, well, there it is,
Right.
I've always been kind of that kind of guy. People have always said, well, you always seem to be a real straight shooter. And I am. And sometimes people like what I have to say, and a lot of times they don't. So I just went, well, I'll put it out there.
Right. So you were born back in 1963 in
1962.
1962 in Sacramento, California.
Yeah, well, there's some question. I tell people 63, and my wife says no, it's 62, because there's two different. I have a birth certificate that says 63, and then there's another certificate that says 62.
Oh wow!
So, officially it's 62. But I gain another year. When you get older, man, you start gaining another. You try to get another year in there if you can. But officially it's 62. But if you were to look at my actual birth certificate, it says 63. But they messed up. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you might not even know your actual day. Then you don't really know the actual birthday.
Oh, I know the day. It was November 5th. It's just, was it 62?
My daughter's birthday. My daughter's birthday is November 5th. But if
Guy Fawkes Day.
So what you're saying is it could be November 5th of 1963 as opposed to November 5th of 1962?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, they
interesting.
somehow they got a year wrong. Maybe it's the people at the hospital were smoking pot or something, or some of that CBD stuff. And,
Well, in
they
those days it
didn't
was
realize what year it was.
in those days it was reefer madness.
Yeah,
Reefer
Reefer Madness. Yeah, Ray
Right.
Charles. Yeah.
So, Brian, did obviously through reading some of your book, music wasn't always the focus that you had in front of you. You got a guitar when you were younger, when you broke your leg. When you were 12 years old in a tobogganing accident?
Yeah, I hit a tree in a toboggan and snapped my leg in half, and I was in a cast for about 9 months.
Holy
What a
shit.
drag,
Yeah,
man.
brother.
Wow.
Yeah,
So-
and that's one thing that me and Frank, we connect on a lot of things. Because when he was 12, he broke his leg and he learned how to play guitar. He obviously learned much better than I did, though.
Wow. That's kind of crazy.
It's wild because it's like, you know, something terrible happens, but it becomes a blessing because look what it led you down your life's path.
Yeah, no, it's true.
So it's
True.
weird. It's like
Yeah.
Jeremy Popoff had a similar story to him, how he got going with the band Lit and everything. He had his bicycle stolen and he ended up getting a guitar because of it, and it led him down that path. And I was like, wow, it's something you think is horrible. Of course, breaking your leg is a lot worse than having a bike stolen, but
Yeah, I had that happen too.
yeah.
Yeah, I had a bike stolen. Now that you mention it, I mean, I think everyone's had their bike stolen, right?
I almost had one time.
And
I almost did.
if you read my book, maybe it was my brothers that were stealing your bike because they were running a stolen bike ring in my in our garage, you know.
And if there was a lime green a Kawahara, it was mine.
Yeah, mine was a yellow Stingray.
So you ended up selling your bike though for $40 to buy a bass, didn't you?
That's true. Yeah, my first bass, I sold it to my brother for $40, and then I was able to buy my very first bass guitar.
So why the change? Why going from the guitar to the bass?
Paul McCartney, because
There you go, baby.
yeah,
There you
Paul
go.
McCartney is my hero, and I'm of the opinion on the 8th day God created Paul McCartney, and on the 9th day he created Jimmy Page, and on the 10th day he created Freddie Mercury, and then on the 11th day he had to take a rest again because that was pretty heavy for him.
Right?
Yeah.
Paul McCartney, man, we just had Brian May on with us 2 weeks ago, and I wouldn't even imagine what it's like to share a stage with that man.
Yeah, Brian, I've seen him play with Paul probably 20 times. It's great. Yeah, that's a great band Paul's got, and Brian is he's a great guitar player. He plays everything. He plays the bass, plays the guitar. Cool. Yeah, that's great. I love Paul. Paul, he's the reason I wanted to be a musician or whatever, rock star, whatever you want to call it. It was because of Paul McCartney and the Beatles, but mainly Paul McCartney.
Nice.
Yeah, that's what you're saying with was it Revolver? The first song was skipped, so you went to the second track, which was Eleanor Rigby.
I went to Eleanor Rigby, and just the sound of that voice. His voice is double tracked, and then the strings. It was just like that was the heaviest, weirdest, like coolest thing I'd ever heard. Because up until then, I was hearing those little kiddie records that my mom was buying me. Johnny Comes Marching Home and all that stuff, those little supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. From that to Eleanor Rigby, and it was over after that.
Yeah, I used to have the 45s. It's not a whole lot of full length, but the 45s would be like you put them on the record player and you listen to, all that
little
stuff.
kid records, when you're a little kiddie. That's what it was. And my brother was all pissed off because, you know, I was playing his records on my little kid record player. So he was all, you know, I have 5 brothers and an older sister, and they're all older than me. And then I have a younger brother that's a year younger than me. So, you know, I was exposed to a lot of mayhem and just all kinds of stuff, you know, music and marijuana and sex and everything was, you know, happening. But, you know, 5 years old, I'm seeing everything.
Right.
Talk about coming at you live. It was coming at me live. All right.
Yeah, no kidding. Because your siblings were quite a bit older. I mean, really, I've got older siblings as well. They weren't quite that much older. I mean, one of them was what, 12 or 13 years older than you, depending on which
Yeah. My oldest brother, Buddy, who also lives in Baird.
Nice.
He's like my father. He, you know, he basically was like my father kind of figure.
Yeah.
He's 14 years older than me. So you can imagine, here I am, you know, your earliest memories are 4 or 5 years old, you know, I guess, you know, and the first thing I remember really hearing coming out of their room was like Sunshine of Your Love by Cream, and smelling this funny smell that you know, was marijuana.
Right.
And you know, my mom, she was oblivious to it. You know, as I got older, I'm like, Mom, you know, that's marijuana. That smell. No, you know, that's not. So,
right.
So yeah, that was it. That's why it was the bass. So when she got me the guitar when I broke my leg, I wanted always in the back of my mind to be a bass player anyways. And the guitar had too many strings. I play guitar today, but I play like a caveman, and I play just probably good enough to, you know, to write songs, that and piano, but my main instrument is the bass guitar.
Cool.
Nice.
That's cool.
Nice. So somewhere along the line, you fell in love with a passion of mine, which is photography.
Yeah. I'm one of my really, really, really good friends is this guy Ross Halfin, who is a famous rock photographer from England, and he's, you know, quite a character in that of himself. But we'd go on these trips. You know, people think when you're on tour, you get to see all the world and do this, that, and the other, but I really don't get to see much of it because I wake up, I get off the bus, I do sound check, you know, I shower, I play the show, I get on the bus, I go to the next city.
Yep.
Right.
So if I wanted to go someplace cool and actually see something, I've gone outside of Tesla off tour. So we go to all these different places all over the world, you know, whether it's the Far East or Europe or, you know, wherever. And he handed me his one of his cameras one day and said, you know, take some pictures, mess around. So I did. And it was a little Leica. And from that, I just developed really getting into taking photos of, you know, people, places, things, where I'm at, you know, usually on these kind of trips or something. And that kind of developed into this other thing that I do, which is I now, you know, paint on those pictures, and I put the pictures on canvas, and I add paint to the actual photograph I take. And, you know, I've become a quote unquote artist, I guess. So my stuff goes through the Wentworth Gallery alongside Paul Stanley paints and Rick Allen and Rick Ocasek and the drummer in Leonard Skinner. What's his name? The guy that's in the damn Yankees. I can't remember. Yeah. So I, you know, from that photography, it turned into that, you know.
Nice.
But I mean, early on, I thought it was a junior photographer in the early days of Tesla. I was doing, you know, lingerie photographing and stuff. But they never knew there was no film in the camera. But,
right.
Damn, why didn't I think of that?
But then I got serious about photography.
Yeah, serious. Well, that man get serious, brother.
Yeah. Then and it's a big passion of mine. I have like 2 Nikons, a couple of Leicas, and I really enjoy, going out and taking pictures of stuff.
Absolutely, brother.
Is that a hockey jersey you're wearing?
Actually, no, it's a Denver Broncos jersey I'm wearing, my brother.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a hockey jersey guy.
I like that. Yeah, whatever. Denver Broncos.
If it's a hockey jersey I'm wearing, it's going to be the Colorado Avalanche. So
Okay.
I'm born and raised in Denver. I just moved to West Texas 3 years ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I moved to West Texas 3 years ago as well.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, dude, we're gonna have to do some fishing off my back dock here. We can get some pretty good caddies and some white bass and stripers.
Okay. Yeah, sure thing.
So, do you mind here? I've got the preface of your book opened up in a second window. Do you mind if I share that for a moment on our screen?
You go ahead, buddy. Do whatever you want.
Right on, brother. Right on. So here's what I'm really kind of wanting to talk about, because this kind of just puts it right in your face of what the book is about and why it's been written. People can see it, but you go on to say a couple of things about my book. When you write a memoir, they tell you that it's important to figure out what your voice is. I think I've learned that putting together this book, that my voice is all over the map. It's just my personality. I jump around a lot. Part of it is a lot of things are going on in my life at all times, but part of it is just my personality. Brian, I can completely and 100% relate to that. You were diagnosed and struggled with generalized anxiety disorder, the occasional depression, a bit of OCD, and a host of autoimmune disorders, which obviously makes doing what you do probably very difficult at times. So Brian, I was diagnosed in 2005 with generalized anxiety and depression disorder.
Mm-hmm.
And Robbie can tell you firsthand, he's seen me, I get worked up and I live on things like lorazepam and Xanax and all those fun things.
Mm-hmm.
But to get up and perform at the level that you perform at, and dealing with the autoimmune disorders, obviously the autoimmune disorders are a fireball to your anxiety.
Yeah, it's like one vicious cycle that just feeds off each other. It's when it gets whirled up, it's can you cuss on this thing?
Yes,
absolutely.
Go ahead.
It's a motherfucker, man.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, when the anxiety's happening and the colitis is happening, and it's just, man, your anxiety because the colitis, and then the pain gets worse, and it just keeps in this frenzy, right? And then what do you combat that with? Well, it winds up being steroids for the autoimmune disease. And then that puts weight on you, and that makes you even more anxiety. And then people are calling you a fat motherfucker. And it just feeds into itself. And so at times, man, it can be very difficult. But I want people to realize I'm not asking for any sympathy here. That's not my bag.
Right.
When I put this stuff in the book, I just want people to know, basically the fans of the band, or if you're a fan of Brian, there are a lot of people that are fans of the band that aren't fans of mine. They think I'm a fucking idiot, especially with social media. You get, whatever you say, they got to say something else. If I say, well, I didn't like that one particular album we made because, we made 14. Because I didn't think it was as good as they say, well, Brian hates that record. He's a fucking asshole. That's the kind of shit you get. I mean, social media drives me crazy.
It's like feeding carp.
basically, for the people that are cool, it's like, hey, look, if they can relate to me, like, hey, well, this guy's in this band, and it's however famous or whatever, I'm not on any trip. And he's got this shit and he can deal with it, and then he can actually put it out there and talk about it, then maybe that'll help some of them people.
Absolutely. 100%.
And that's kind of where I was at. I mean, look, I wasn't that comfortable talking about bulimia.
Right.
And it's funny having put out this book and doing some of the press on it. It seems that people think that bulimia is, an exclusive thing to women, but it's not. I mean, I was bulimic because it was a way to stay thin in the 80s when, Tesla was at the height of their career, and, there was so much pressure to try to look good so you can get on the covers of magazines and stuff, which we never got on any covers, any magazines. But in your mind, this is what fuels your psyche. And then you have anxiety because you're putting on weight. It's just, right. Anxiety is a motherfucker, and so is autoimmune disease. And honestly, in my humble opinion today, social media doesn't help anyone with any of that.
No.
Because anyone can say anything. And if you're sensitive about what someone may say about you or whatever, don't be in a famous rock band and have, 1 million followers on Facebook being able to say whatever they want to say about you at any given time. And you can't say, hey, fuck you. Right. You don't know me, but that's, look, like I said, it's the way of the world. It's the world we live in today. When we were young, we didn't have Facebook. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have cell phones that you could get anything you wanted immediately in the palm of your hands. We had sports and shopping malls and rock concerts.
Damn right.
And that's all we had, or we had to learn how to play an instrument because we wanted to be in a rock band, so we could get chicks,
right.
or whatever it was,
Right.
Because we wanted to be like, the rock band we saw at the Memorial Auditorium or whatever. And, for me, it was, I saw UFO and I wanted to be Pete Way.
Michael Schenker. Yeah.
It's that kind of thing.
Yep.
Right.
That, does it. But anyways, I don't know where the question started. And like I said, I'm all over the place, and I probably just went on a fucking 360 tangent.
No, that was great, because what you're basically saying is you're putting that out there was completely for the right reason, because so many people, when they see that you've got it, they're looking at, a lot of people look up to you and they go, wow, he's got these anxieties and all these different things, and people don't realize that, it affects so many people. It affects me.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had issues with anxiety, a lot too in the past. Not as much recently. It's been pretty good, but I had some years where it was pretty bad, and it wasn't easy to talk about. You just go and go, hey, guess what? I got anxiety. People look at you weird.
People look at you like you're fucking nuts.
Yeah, and I've talked to myself.
That's the thing I talk about. When the only time I ever met Chris Cornell.
Right.
And we were driving around LA with Ross, and he started telling me, man, I had these anxiety attacks. And I'm like, what? Really?
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Dude. I've been having those since I was 14. He was the only other guy I had ever met in a band that ever told me he had anxiety attacks.
Wow.
And I didn't know anyone else that had. Or ever talked about it, at least.
Or admitted to it, right?
Right, because it's a stigma,
There is a stigma to it. There really is.
People see you as weak or something, because you have a hard time with anxiety or depression. Oh, don't be a pussy. What, be a man. Come on. All that horror.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
It really is sad. Like, so I've got issues with my spine, with bone spurs and arthritis and bulging discs. And then you add the anxiety on top of that, which makes you feel like you're having like a heart attack and your pulse is racing. So you go to the doctor and they just look at you like you're a hypochondriac, like, oh, here he comes again. You know what I mean? It's like
he wants some drugs.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
And you know, the last thing I want is drugs.
Because that gives me more anxiety.
Yeah, I just want peace of mind, man.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
And
some of the
Right.
drugs can certainly help. I mean, there was a period that I went on some stuff and it helped, but the thing was I was numb. I was
Yeah.
numb. You know, I just didn't feel stuff. And when I came off it, all of a sudden, all these emotions and all these things were hitting me. I'm like, oh my God, you know, you're wanting to cry at a drop of a, you know, I mean,
Yeah, no, I you know,
Yeah.
I take Paxil for anxiety, and
Paxil. That's what I couldn't remember what it was. I was on that.
I've been taking it for about 15 years, and last year I decided I didn't want to take it anymore, you know, because I wanted to be tough and not have to take it. And so I weaned off it, which, you know, is pretty hard to do. You got to
Yep.
it's like a 3-month process.
Yep.
right.
And lo and behold, 3 months later, what came back wasn't anxiety, but was severe depression.
Oh,
And
wow.
And I was on tour with Def Leppard in Canada. And then I got this thing where I didn't want to get out of my bunk. And I would just get out of my bunk, take a shower, play the show, and go back to my bunk. You know, and this was like for 3 weeks. And then while I was on stage, I would start having anxiety attacks.
Oh,
So here I am, you know, in arenas in Canada, sold out, should be having the time of my life. And instead of me being able to live in the moment and, you know, play and concentrate on playing whatever thing is, I'm going, I hope I don't pass out in front of all these people.
Yeah.
And this was what I was doing, you know, the whole tour. It was miserable for me.
Wow.
And it should have been one of the most enjoyable times of my life.
yeah.
But I did my job and I got up there and I muscled through it. And, you know, I doubt that the people knew, but that's what I was going through. And that's kind of what I share in the book.
Wow, brother. I know that feeling, the blood pressure going, the headache, the cold chills, the shaking. I've been there.
Man, the tunnel vision, how your vision goes like a tunnel, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden you got no peripheral vision and it gets kind of dark and you got spinning.
Yep.
And you know, I've never passed out from it, but I come pretty close to it. And you know, you're doing that, you're trying to hang on to your Thunderbird and you're going, well, let me get away from the drum riser. So if I do go down, I don't hit my head and kill myself.
Right.
You start thinking all this shit, you know, all in a fraction of a second.
Yeah.
All in a fraction of a second. You know, all these thoughts go through your brain.
Sweating a lot too, probably just like.
Oh yeah, clammy and just your palms. And you know, dude, as a guitar player, you try playing your guitar with sweaty palms and shit. It's horrible.
Yeah.
Right. And Robbie knows last year I was 412 pounds, Brian.
No shit.
No shit, brother. With generalized anxiety, I went into the doctor. I had pitting edema on both my legs, and they're like, "Hey, dude, you got congestive heart failure. You're gonna die." You know, all of these things. So the anxiety was like out of control. So I went and got the gastric sleeve done. I've dropped like 140 pounds now. Hasn't helped the anxiety, but it's helped me stop focusing on me. I think I'm having a heart attack. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Well,
yeah,
good for you, man. I'm glad you're getting some help, and hopefully you feel better. You know.
yeah. I just it's such a crippling thing, and it affects so many people. And I'm glad we're able to talk about it because it's always been something that people have been ashamed of. Because they just diagnose it as a mental disorder. And once you put that stigma on somebody, you know, it's such a broad range.
I think a lot of people are in that. I really believe a lot of people are. And for me, I wouldn't even say anything about it. But the fact that you came out and said something about it makes me feel comfortable saying something about it as well. Because I mean, I went through a period where it was really difficult. I mean, I moved to California in '93 trying to find a band, and I would have so much anxiety. I'd meet somebody, and if you start having a panic attack, like you said, the tunnel vision, what do? You want to run. And that's what I would do. I would leave. I'd be in a conversation and would leave, and then I'd be like, oh my God, what did I do?
Yeah.
But it was like, I couldn't, you know, I don't know what was going to happen. Was I going to pass out? What was going to happen? You don't know.
Right.
No, you get that fight or flight thing going.
Exactly. And typically, most of the time, I would just flight. I'd be gone, and people look at me like, "What the fuck is wrong with that guy?" And then you're like, "Oh, they don't. Oh God, what are you gonna do? You can't go. Well, sorry, man. I got
Right. You
bad
can't run
advice.
around with a disclaimer on your chest.
Right?
Right.
So I'm glad you're putting it out there and you're enabling us to talk about it, because I'm willing to bet if we look in the comments here, there's probably people who are.
Yeah, I've got a few comments right here. Robin says it is so rare to hear men talk about this. Thank you so much. Dana says the real talk is actually refreshing. Steve Ward says, well, Steve goes a different direction. Brian, Steve Ward says, I can't tell you how many times I got laid to Tesla music. Just wanted to say thank you.
Hey, congratulations.
Right on, Steve. Love song did it for you too, huh?
I'm glad. I'm glad I could help you in whatever way I could.
Right. And actually, I think we've got some questions from our producer, aka Robbie's wife, coming in, Brian. So we're gonna take a couple questions from the audience here.
Sure thing.
All right.
Hi, Brian.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so
Thank you.
much for just being so honest and sharing with everyone. It's been really helpful just reading everyone's comments. But we do have a few questions for you. So the first question is from Jennifer, and she is wondering if you could share a little bit about maybe one of the wildest Tesla stories that you wrote in your book.
Well, wild. That's a hard one, because what is considered wild?
Right?
You know, I mean, there's obviously no real sex stories in the book. So wild stories. I don't know. I is she like live online?
Yes.
Yeah.
Ask her to elaborate on that. Like, what does she mean wild? Wild in what sense?
All right. So we'll come back to Jennifer's question then.
Okay, so we'll move on. All right, so Danny wants to know, oh, by the way, he says he's seen you 3 or 4 times with Firehouse. But his question is, who is the best supporting act you had toured with?
All of them.
All of them.
The best supporting act?
Yeah.
Maybe the one you had the most fun with, you know, the coolest guys, more than just
Well,
the band.
I'll tell you this, like, if you ask me who we had the most fun with, any band we ever played with, let's just go with that. Because they're supporting acts. I mean, over the 40 years or whatever, there's been so many. I mean, and Firehouse certainly was a lot of fun. They did our only headline tour in arenas on Psychotic Supper. But I guess the band that we had the most fun with is Def Leppard, because they're kind of like kinship to us. They're like our big brothers.
Right.
And, you know, they've known us since our first album when we first came out. And so it would be Def Leppard.
Okay, great, thank you. I have another one from Veronica. Veronica's wondering, what is your favorite Tesla song to play?
Song and Emotion.
Song and Emotion. Hell yeah.
Thank you, Brian.
Song and Emotion would be my favorite Tesla song to play.
Nice.
And we don't play it that much, but you know, we do every now and again. So that's one of my favorite. That's my favorite one.
Awesome. Thanks, Jess. We'll bring you back in just a few minutes here.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Brian.
Jennifer says
You're welcome.
crazy Tesla moment that stood out is what she was talking about. So for whatever that means.
Running down the streets naked, hair on fire.
I mean, there's got to be so many. It's like, I mean, you know, how many different things that happen that you know.
Okay. Well, I think
God.
one moment that sticks out is when we were on tour with Poison in 1989. And, you know, at the end of the tour, they always do these pranks where they mess with you while you're trying to play, and, you know, the end of tour pranks. And with that one, it got a little out of control. And, you know, they were up in the light rafters throwing tuna fish on us and
Shit.
macaroni salad and all this stuff. So when they got on stage, it was just like, all right, dude, it's on. So we went after them. And I think one of the guys in the crew took off all his clothes and put a bag over his head and ran out there naked on stage.
Jesus.
I got a hold of their samples, with all the background vocals and stuff. I started hitting those all over the place when they were playing.
Oh,
and
man.
they had their crew guys chasing us down, their big crew guys. And that's one
funny.
pretty wild story that kind of sticks out.
Do you know who Dallas Brown is by any chance? He was their guitar tech in that day at that tour. I don't know if you remember.
I believe so.
Yeah, he would have been one of the guys doing the crazy shit. He was CC's guitar tech on that tour.
Okay, yeah.
He probably wouldn't surprise me if he was the guy that ran out there naked. That would be Dallas.
No, it's one of the guys on our crew.
Oh, one of your crew. Oh, shit.
Yeah, Poison was on stage. They ran out.
Oh,
Unskinny Bop or whatever they were playing.
Oh, that's funny.
And got unskinny.
Yeah, that's funny.
I've always been called unskinny, so I guess I get with that. So going back to the book that just launched today, let's show the cover shot of that over here. So we got Son of a Milkman. Now, you start off the book with Joe Elliott. You've been talking about Def Leppard a lot this evening. So Joe Elliott of Def Leppard actually did the forward in the book for you.
Yeah, he's one of my, well, he is probably my best friend in another band.
Right.
He's like a brother to me, like a big brother.
And that's what he said in there. And then he said something that you accused him of ignoring you on the first tour and called you a bastard and said he didn't remember that.
No, what I said was when we first started that tour, we started in England.
Right.
And that was the first time Def Leppard had played since Rick Allen had lost his arm.
Oh, wow.
So I hung out with Steve Clark, Phil Collin, Rick Allen a lot.
Right.
Sav was kind of distant. And Joe Elliott was nowhere to be found. He'd be at the gigs and sing, and that was it. And so I just thought he didn't like us. I remember telling Cliff Bernstein, our manager, do they not like us being on tour? Because, I thought, well, Joe's not very sociable.
Right.
But he was into whatever. He was probably preoccupied with first time touring and having a drummer with one arm and all these things. So, yeah, I say, he didn't. He remembers it differently. But, the whole rest of the tour that when we were in America for 12 months, me and him were going to malls and restaurants and shopping on days off and stuff. And I never did that with him on that first tour. But he remembers it different. So, and then we had a foot race and he cheated. So
the 100-yard dash?
Yeah, he cheated. He beat me. But, he's 6 inches taller than me.
He had a little bit of stride on you.
Longer legs.
So you probably got out of the gate faster, but then he come galloping by.
I almost beat him,
Right.
Yeah.
So you guys actually bonded. So what I read in the story is that you were, rooms were joined at a hotel, and he heard you playing Paul McCartney and a lot of the Beatles stuff and jamming, and that's kind of where the connection came into place. Is that how you remember it?
Yeah. Well, me and Frank used to share a room back then.
Okay.
And, we were playing music, whatever. Frank had his guitar and a little amp or whatever. So who knows what we were doing. It was kind of late. It was almost maybe 1 o'clock in the morning. And when there's a knock on the door, and I thought, oh, shit, it's security, And I look out there, and it was Joe Elliott. I said, oh, Frank, it's Joe Elliott, the singer. And so, well, answer the door. So I opened the door. I said, hey, what's up, buddy? I'm sorry, man. We too loud? We're making too much noise? Wake you up? He goes, no, can I come in? I said, yeah, come on in, man.
Right.
So he came in, and then we started playing music and jamming, and he started playing Frank's guitar and stuff, and he started playing Paul McCartney songs. And then I bonded with him because I confessed my love for Paul McCartney.
Right.
And he found out that he's a fellow McCartney freak. And, you know, that day on, we were instant pals.
Wow. How cool, man. How cool that's what brought you together, and that's what also brought you into music.
And we still to this day talk about Paul McCartney.
Do you?
I talked to him last week because Paul McCartney's got a new album coming out on
Right.
Friday. And I'm like, hey, man, you going to get it? And he's like, yeah, I hope it's better than that last one. You know, this, that, and the other. And, you know, we have a lot of banter, me and him.
That's nice, man. That's really cool. So Glenn Bratton says, when I saw Tesla several times after they restarted in 2000, you guys seemed a little more loose, a little less formal, and the shows and the smaller venues were a lot more fun. It was a rush to be in front of the crowd. What changed? What made you guys more loose and informal after the restart in 2000?
Well, I think part of it was, you know, we broke up for 5 years from 1995 to 2000 or whatever it was. And we kind of were a lot more appreciative of Tesla itself, you know. We didn't take it as much for granted, and we were happy to be able to have a shot to come back and try it again. And, you know, we were growing as people. We were trying to communicate with each other a lot better than we did the first 10 years.
Right.
And we had some bumps in the road, obviously, a little bit later again. And then, you know, now we're in a really good place in terms of we're all on the same page. And, you know, we get along really good. If we have a disagreement, or we like to call them discussions,
Right.
we deal with it. And we value what we have. We know it's a gift.
Cool.
Nice, brother. Nice.
That's great.
What do you prefer, honestly? This is a question from the audience. Do you prefer a small venue or a large venue? Now, obviously, large venues come up with the big price tags and the bigger paychecks, but the smaller venues, you get the intimate experience. So,
Well, I've had intimate experiences in huge venues as well.
okay.
It just depends on the crowd, you know, the level. We're like a band that we feed off what the crowd does. If the crowd's kind of flat, we'll end up playing kind of flat. If
Right.
the crowd's going crazy, it's like a shot of adrenaline for us.
Right.
So I've had amazing shows. I guess the smallest gig we ever played was the Marquee in London. I think that was 300 people.
Wow.
And then, you know, the biggest one was probably Texas Jam, which was 105,000.
Right.
So both those gigs were equally as great, and they were complete polar opposites. But the crowd was amazing and on fire in both of them.
Nice, brother.
Yeah.
Nice. Good question from the audience, though. I know that's something because I deal with a few artists that I'm helping out as well, and we just had one here this weekend, and we had a venue that we had very little people show up, but the crowd's energy was off the chain, and it was the best show we did. And most
Yep.
show we did, you know. So that's awesome. So a few more questions for you here real quick. What was the inspiration behind writing the book?
Well, I don't know. I mean, when I was in therapy
Okay.
in the early 90s with Dr. Hirschkopf for anxiety and depression, he said to me, he said, you should consider writing a book because it'll be therapeutic for you. Because when you hold stuff in, it breeds anxiety, right? If you let it go and you write it on paper or whatever, you let it go into the cosmic universe, it kind of releases you. So him having said that in 1990, no one was going to want to hear a book from Brian Wheat. No one cared. There wasn't really a story. I mean, we were only on our second album. Right. As I sit here today, my career's been going 38 years. So part of it was that time in my career where if you're going to write a book, you know, you're getting into the last stages of your career. Right. And my age, I turned 58 this year. Although when I started the book, I was 53. So I think it was okay. You know, I'm in my 50s. And that was the inspiration to do it. That was the idea. It's like, well, I want to write a book. I mean, I've seen other guys in rock bands write books, you know.
Lots of them.
You know, Phil Collin was probably inspiration a little bit because his book had just come out when we were starting on that record, the Shock record. And I had told him, you know, yeah, I want to write a book. And I actually started to write a part of a manuscript. He said, you should finish it, you know. So that's from that. I'm one of those guys that one of my bad habits is if I start something, if it's wrong or right, I usually finish it. And, you know, sometimes there are things I wish I wouldn't have finished, but I did. And then you know, so the book was one of them. I started it and it's like, well, I'll see it through to the end.
There you go.
You know, another thing was, Tesla breaking up in 95. You know, I was so frustrated and pissed off, if you will, that looking back on it, it's like, well, I wish I wouldn't have been like, okay, fuck it. We're breaking up. That's it. It's over. I wish I would have been like, hey guys, let's try to get in a room and work this out. You know what I mean? But that was where we were going. And I was like, okay, that's cool. And then me and Frank called up the lawyer and said, dissolve the band. You know, we're done. You know, where really what we should have did is sit around and cooled off for 3 or 4 months and then called everyone back and said, hey, you know, look, let's try to work this out. But in regards to the band breaking up in 95, I think it's the best thing that happened to us because we're still sitting here 37 years later, you know, and we did have 4 years off and we had to learn some hard lessons. And I talk about that in the book as well.
Right.
But it made us better people and it made us better bandmates. And it made us appreciate the gift of being able to be in a band like Tesla and going out and singing songs that you write that people enjoy and that you can earn your living that way. You know, it's a gift, man.
Totally.
Absolutely, brother. When was that moment you knew that Tesla had made it?
I would say probably when Signs came out, you know, because we had the one hit with Love Song, the top 10 single, but we were still supporting bands. And when Signs came out and stuff, we moved into like a 2-year period where we were headlining major arenas and stuff. And I thought, okay, you know, this now we're here. And that's when it kind of changed for us. I think, you know, I tell people you can't be young and successful and in a rock band and not have it affect you.
Right.
And not affect you in a negative way. You know, I'm sure there were times people thought I was an asshole. It's hard not to be affected by that. You get so many people telling you how cool you are or this, that, and the other, feeding you full all kinds of bullshit. You start to believe the bullshit.
Yeah.
And that was the thing, is I think we started to all believe the bullshit. We started listening to other people around us and not each other. And that's why we broke up. And then when we got back together, all we had was each other. No one wanted to bother with us, you know,
Right.
including our old managers or this, that, and the other. So, and we've kind of had that mentality ever since we've been back together in 2000. It's us and then the rest of the world, you know. We have to plot our own course, if you will.
Yeah.
Signs to this day, still one of my all-time favorite songs. Love it.
I think we did a really good version of it.
You did. You did, absolutely.
You guys did that first album, and I mean, you guys got a lot of airplay, did the touring and stuff. But when the tour was over, I don't know, there was this girl I knew back in the day was dating Troy's tech. I think they got married, Dana Dardano. I don't know if you know Dana or not.
Oh yeah, absolutely. She married
Okay.
Denny,
Yeah,
Troy's stepbrother.
that's what it was. And she was saying that, you guys did the first tour and everybody's going, oh, they're huge. I mean, and then I guess you guys came back from the tour and all had to go back to your day jobs. Is that right? It was like, everybody's thinking, okay, they're multimillionaires, but they're not,
No, we didn't have no day jobs we had to go back to.
Okay, so that was not true.
No, I mean, we weren't as rich as people thought,
Yeah.
but we immediately got off that first Hysteria tour and went into rehearsal to write Great Radio Controversy, and then back in the studio, and then back on tour. I mean, we were on from 1985 to 1993. We were nonstop, no break.
Wow.
And then after the headline tour of Psychotic Supper, which was 1991, and that lasted pretty much 2 years, then we took a break before we did Bust a Nut, and I think we took a year off. And by the time we got to Bust a Nut, we were orbiting Pluto. Right. We were having all kinds of issues. And, and I said something about that on the internet the other day, that I didn't think, or in an interview, that I didn't think Bust a Nut lived up to the first 3 albums. And I got chastised for it, like I committed blasphemy or something. Wow. And look, it's just my opinion. I wrote half the songs on the record. I said, look, half the songs I wrote were shit for it. I don't think they're the best songs I wrote. But so the fans kind of ganged up on me. Wow. And gave me an ass whooping. Damn. I didn't say I didn't like the album. I do like the album, but I just don't think it was as. I said it was disjointed, and I would know. I was there. I'm in the band.
Right.
The band was disjointed. Okay, you as a listener and a fan, you have your fantasy of what it was like or what we were doing, or how, in your mind you have a vision of what you think it was. Trust me, I was there. The band was disjointed, and it came across in the record. And maybe that's what they like. Maybe they like the chaos of it all. But it's certainly not my least favorite record. It's one of my favorite records that of all the records we made. But somehow they got it to where Brian Wheat hates Bust a Nut. And another thing was when we put out this record with Shock, with Phil Collen, our last studio album, Shock. And boy, with that one, people either loved it or they hated it. But some fans were being really nasty about it and saying, they suck. This album's horrible. They've turned into Def Leppard, this, that, and the other. And I'm just like, well, look, I wear my shit on my sleeve. I'm like, if you don't want to if you don't like it, don't listen to it. Fuck off.
Right.
Go listen to another one. And then, the headline is Brian Wheat tells his fans to fuck off. That's not what I said. If look, we just spent a year making something we really like, because we don't like to do the same thing. Oh, these guys, these particular fans, they'd have you make Mechanical Resonance every single record. Well, that's not what Tesla does. So we tried something different, a new way, kind of a Def Leppard production, if you will, with Phil. And it has some great moments on it. And, they slammed that. And because I just said, if you don't like it, go listen to one of the other ones. Fuck off. It was in jest. Then I told my fans to fuck off. I would never tell my fans to fuck off. I am who I am today, and I have what I have, and I am the guy I am today because of the fans I have.
Yeah.
I never tell my fans to fuck off.
Hate me stinking fans.
So you fans, I know the ones out there listening. There you go. That's my side of the story. And I'm sticking to it.
It's crazy how twisted things can get I work in media. I work in radio stations, and it's crazy how fast the old phone game works. You remember the old phone game, right?
No, what's that?
Where you whisper in one ear, and by the time it gets to the
Oh
end
yeah,
of
it
the
gets,
circle,
yeah.
something completely distorted, and that happens so much now. There's so many angles and so many avenues to share information, and it might be, hey, I told him to go listen to a different album. By the end of it, it's, I hate all my fans and they're fucking idiots.
Yeah.
You just can't get away from it. There's no way away from it. So
There's a few comments here I was going to read. Sean Baxter says, setting stage for Tesla at the Rev in Boise was one of his favorites. Jennifer says, saw Tesla earlier this year in Amarillo, Texas at the Amarillo Civic Center back in February. It was third time seeing Tesla. And you guys put on a great show. Sarah wants to know what your favorite Beatles song is.
Let It Be.
Let It Be.
Let It Be.
yes,
Favorite song, period, is Let It Be.
Wow.
love it. Absolutely.
Saw you at a Hobart Arena in Troy, Ohio a few years ago, small venue. Tesla on Mort kicked ass. Peter Bourne, we most definitely, I'm not sure what that was. I know there was a story between those guys, and there's just so many comments, it's hard to keep up.
There's a lot of comments. You're a very popular guy, Brian.
Oh, well,
They love you.
They love
Hey.
I love them.
you.
I do. I love all of them. I mean, honestly, look, man, anyone that helps support what we do, I mean, you got to love them, man. They're taking their hard-earned cash and buying
Absolutely.
your tickets or your shirts or your albums. That
Absolutely.
they don't have to do that.
Right?
Right?
And I love them for it. I love them for their continued support throughout the years. If they didn't want to come and see us play, then we wouldn't play anymore. We'd be done. It'd be through. It'd be over.
Right? I end my morning show every morning with, I love you all for listening. Have a great day. And you actually mean it. You know what I mean? That's the point of it. Without
Yeah,
them,
you do mean it.
we're nobody. I'm just a weird dude sitting in a radio station playing music.
Darren O'Brien says, best time I saw Tesla was 2 nights in a row at the Cow Palace in San Francisco Hysteria Tour. Darren O'Brien, thank you, Darren O'Brien. This wine was his. He sent.
Nice.
Yeah,
So-
there's so many things.
Let's talk about where they can get the book, Brian.
Yeah.
Where are they able to get the book?
Well, you can get it at Amazon, obviously.
Okay.
Barnes and Noble, wherever bookstores, if you're into brick and mortars, I mean, the only one I really know is Barnes and Noble as far as brick and mortar. But, if there's, I guess the big thing is Amazon, Amazon and bookstores that carry new books. These days, I think a lot of people buy stuff online at Amazon.
Right.
And then if we ever do get back to going on tour, I may do a thing where I sell some signed books, when we're playing and stuff at some point. But who knows when we're going to play?
You guys don't have any shows booked at this point for next year?
Well, we do. It's not a matter of having them booked. It's actually a matter of doing them.
Right. I was just curious if you did actually have them, because we've got shows starting in April.
We got some stuff in I think starting in June.
Oh, okay.
People just hope that we're going to be able to do it, but
Right.
with the way where this country is right now, who knows?
Yeah.
We're going back into lockdowns and stuff
Yeah.
where people thought, well, maybe we'd be through it by this time. So I don't know. I mean, that's up to, unfortunately, it's up to our government and to tell us when they think,
When it's okay.
when it's okay, but they're out with no mask on. And
Yeah.
Exactly.
And where we're at, Brian, is like a hotbed for this stuff right now. I know you and I are within about 45 minutes of each other, and we just had 367 new cases yesterday.
yeah, right now I'm in Sacramento.
Okay.
I'm working in my studio in Sacramento.
Nice.
And my wife and dogs are in the house in New York. I mean, like I said, the middle of January, we take off for the Texas house and
Right.
spend the winter there, because the winters in New York are crazy,
Crazy.
especially where I live. You know, they get 5 feet of snow. I'm up by Syracuse.
What are you working on in the studio right now? What are you doing?
I'm producing a band from Ireland called On Off.
On Off.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a band. Okay, there was another one I heard. On Off On. It was a neighbor of mine. Is intense stuff. I'm sure it's not the same one then.
Yeah, this
So-
is kind of like a punk pop band.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
and you know, it keeps me sane. You know, part of the thing with people say, how do you cope with, you know, this COVID thing? And I had breakfast with Jeff Keith yesterday. We had breakfast together, and it's, you know, we really miss playing, because it's like, what's our purpose? You know,
Yeah.
this is what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was going crazy at my house in New York. So I decided, well, since they said that recording is now essential business, I'd come and do some work in the studio and do something creative, so I don't just sit around and trip all day long.
Right.
Right.
Because that's what you do. That's what you tend to do. You know, this COVID thing is not good for people with anxiety and depression.
No, it's
Oh,
not.
man, it's actually been really bad. Really bad for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, they talk about, you know, all these other things, but they don't really talk about how it's affecting, you know, suicide and mental illness and all that
Yep.
stuff.
Exactly. And you got to figure a lot of these people, you know, a lot of people are in situations where they might be in a small apartment or a house with a bunch of people, or, you know, where it's actually really difficult. You know, some people are more fortunate. I'm fortunate. There's 4 of us in our house, and it's a decent sized house, and I have my studio in here. So I feel blessed that I'm able to work and have space to do our thing. But I mean, I know a lot of people, like my wife teaches school, and some of the kids in her school, there's 3 families in a house. I mean, you know, how do you deal with that when you can't go outside and there's 20 people in a house, you know?
Right.
Yeah, and then
People
there's the
don't think
whole,
about that.
you know, there's the whole thing of how it's affected people's income, and
Yeah.
you know, you got people worrying they can't pay their mortgage or their
Yep.
rent, or you
Yep.
know, buy food. It's more than just people dying. You know,
It is.
It is way more because the
because people
economy's
do
dying.
die from the flu. I mean, that's true.
Yes.
But this thing is this thing is affecting more than just that. And
Right.
Oh, way
you know,
more. I mean,
I wish
but
our
there-
government would get it together and you
Yeah.
know, quit fighting, you know, with each other,
yeah.
and get the people that really need the help, or instead of holding out because they don't like the president.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, it's like, you know what, I don't care if you like Trump or you don't like Trump. It's, you have a job as a politician. You're a public servant, and the people that need the help, in spite of what side of the fence they're on, they all
Right.
need the help. Get them
Yep.
the help, and worry about arguing over this shit later. You know, and that's the bummer. And that's
That-
the only political thing I'm going to say is
Well-
get the
well
people to help.
Well said.
Absolutely.
Perfectly well said is right. You know, that is exactly it in a nutshell.
Just do your damn jobs. That's all you got to do.
Right.
Do your damn
Well,
job.
Do your damn job.
Don't worry about the power you're trying to accumulate.
Right. Or mass wealth.
Right. You know, get the stimulus package or whatever you want to call it to the people that need it.
Yep.
You know, it's been fucking 9 months.
Exactly. Exactly. Glenn Bratton says that he's seen you in concert 21 times and he can't wait to see it. Make it number 22 there, brother.
And I can't wait for him to see us, number 22.
Me too.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that number 22 is right here in San Angelo, Texas.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's coming soon. Trust me.
And that'd be great. He could just drive there from where he lives.
I
He
know.
could just meet the band there.
Yeah, 45 minutes away, you'd be good.
Yeah,
So-
my friend, I have a good friend there in San Angelo.
Oh, dear.
Well, they own the Catfish Corner.
Okay, so you know the Catfish Corner, and then they also own the Twisted Root Burger Company, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, her and I actually spoke about you a while back, and I'd gotten your phone number and tried to reach out to you, and I don't know if it was a wrong number or what, because I was
Did
actually
they give you
reaching
the
out
right
to you.
number?
Maybe. I don't know. I'll shoot you a mystery text right after the show's over. But I was actually trying to get you on this show from day one. We started this, what, Robbie, 30-some weeks ago?
It's been about 8 months. Yeah.
Yeah, and you were
Yeah,
one
I
of
never got no text, but I'll give you guys my number when we get offline.
right on, brother. Right on. Yeah, and then I think people need to read the book. Where's the
Oh yeah, you got to. I mean, it's great. You see me somebody that comes up from a humble beginning. The
Yeah.
story of the milkman thing. I was kind of like in shock because it wasn't what I expected. I mean, it was kind of
right?
it's kind of like you said, like you say it yourself. It's kind of like a joke when people say that. But I
Mhm.
was expecting that your dad lived in your house and was, back in that day, we used to get our milk delivered. They go milk. Your dad delivered
Right.
milk.
No, my
But-
dad was the milkman who dropped off some milk
Oh yeah, I'm like, holy
and
shit.
cut out.
Yeah.
Dropped the milk off and split.
The milk and egg man doing a little more than milk
But
and egg.
like I said, the thing too about the book is it's written in my words and my language.
Right.
So it's me talking, and it's funny. A lot of the shit's in there.
It's
it's
relatable.
funny.
It's relatable. So anybody who reads it, it's relatable on it. You get to know the human being that is you. If you don't, it's great. I highly suggest getting it. Get them on the bestsellers list. I mean, it's good. I mean, you love reading stories like that. And somebody comes from a beginning like you did, and it's cool. It's cool.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I'm going to share the links everywhere I can on our websites, on our social media. 3 people are asking right now where Brian makes the most money when somebody buys the book.
Oh, to make for the book.
I don't know. I think I think it's the same.
Same across the board wherever they buy
Yeah,
it.
I think it's the same across the board. It's like a royalty rate like on a record.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I'd probably make the most money if I sold them myself, but that's not happening for a while. And don't worry about where I make the most money. I'm okay. I'm all right. I thought they were going to ask me where I make the most money off books or paintings.
Yeah, I know. It's going to wait a minute. That's out of bounds.
No, they're just trying to make sure you get.
But I make just for the record, I make the most money from being in Tesla. That's where I make the most money.
Absolutely. Kim Baxter would love to ask you if you remember Lonnie Victory.
I've been seeing that a lot on Tesla social. Yeah, he was one of Tommy's guitar techs. That's what I remember about him. He was one of the guys that worked for Tommy Scio at one point in time in our career. So yes, I do remember him. I don't remember much about him. I wouldn't know him if I saw him, but I remember that name, and I remember he was one of the guys that was in a revolving cast of characters that were Tommy's guitar techs. He went through a lot of them.
Wow. All right.
Definitely a great band, and people get out and see the guys when they're back on the road. And we got the chance to play with you guys twice. We played with you at Halfway Jam back in 2012, and M3. So we're
I didn't see any of you guys.
We were standing on the side of the stage, but I know how it is. I wasn't going to bother you. We were back there.
Oh yeah, if I'm on
cheering
the
you.
side of the stage, I'm just looking at all the people there going, who are those people?
Yeah, exactly, because there was hundreds of them.
Right.
Yeah, on the side of the stage, not the thousands in front, but I mean there was 18,000 people in front of them, but on the side of the stage was probably at least 100 on each side of the stage, so there would be no way. And I wasn't gonna go and I wasn't about to make a fool of myself. Hey man, fuck that. I was just there to listen to and enjoy the music. But definitely anybody. Of course, everybody knows the band is great.
5 minutes. I'm in the house.
So check them out.
Okay.
Buy the book.
Absolutely. The book's name is Son of the Milkman.
Son of the
It is
Milkman.
Brian Wheat. Get on Amazon. Get yourself an order on make it happen. And I'm telling you, folks, it's an enjoyable read. I've been reading it. I'm still reading it. And it's been great talking with you, Brian. Brian, do you mind if we put you in the waiting room and we
Go ahead.
numbers, or do you want to do it through Jody?
No, put me in the waiting room and let's get off, and then I'll do this thing for you.
All right, my brother. All right, so Brian, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks,
I'm going to
Brian.
throw you over in the waiting room for just a moment here, and I appreciate you. We'll have you back soon.
Guys, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, my brother. That was Brian Wheat of Tesla. Right here on the Hangout Live. It's going to be a great week next week as well, when we've got the entire crew from Jack Russell's Great White joining us live right here.
Christmas special. Bring your wine. I'll have the Darren O'Brien wine. I left, I only took only one glass once a week is my max. But next week I might do 2.
There
Because
you
I'll
go.
be chilling with the boys from the band. Yeah, Brian's super cool guy, huh? You could just tell he's just so down to earth. I can't imagine people getting on him for anything. I mean, he's like Frank. I got to know Frank a little bit and jammed with him and stuff. And Frank is the same way, just super like down to earth, guys. You know what I mean? Just like you regular dudes that just, happen to be in a band that plays in front of a lot of people.
Right. So I appreciated him coming on. Go out and get the book, Son of the Milkman. Tune in next week. We got Jack Russell's Great White. As always, each and every week, we love you for joining us, and we'll keep rocking as long as you keep coming to look.
And what about our sponsors?
Go for it.
That's your trip, man. You better have the name.
Backbeat Music, Alex, Greg over there at Backbeat Music. We've got Full Spectrum.
Full Spectrum.
And Jody Gentry at Media Jaw. All right, guys, we love you for coming and joining us. We're going to jump off here so we can get Brian's information, but we'll see you next time right here on the Hangout Live.